you don't know me, but some of you do. My name is Mrs. Davidson. Hello. And I will be your missions guide for today. Now, that just means that I will be guiding you through the real life story of a missionary. Now, I'll explain what that is in more detail very soon, but first, you guys, I need your help. Will you help me with something? Okay, cool. I want you to repeat after me, nice and loudly, so that I can hear you. And okay, we ready? All right, so everybody say, spaghetti and golf balls. I didn't want to bring a meatball, so I brought a golf ball. All right, everybody, can you say macaroni and knees? All right, you're getting the gist of it. This is good. This is good. All right, now can you say Creator King and Prince of Darkness? All right, so today's theme, we are learning about our Creator King versus the Prince of Darkness. Now, I have a question for you. Who's our Creator and King? God. That's right, God is. And when we think about God, we know that He is the truth and He is light, right? So this is nice, bright, and yellow. We think of the sun. We think of light. We think of truth, right? This is our Creator King. Now, He is the one who made all of us, and He asks us to obey Him and to trust Him and to go tell the whole world about Him because His way is the best. Now, you guys probably know the answer to this too. Who is the Prince of Darkness? Satan. That's right, Satan, the devil. He is the Prince of Darkness. And when we think of Satan, we often picture dark black, right? Blackness and darkness for Satan, the prince of the world. Now, he is the father of lies, and he doesn't want us to obey God, right? He doesn't want us to love God or to love others. Now, everybody, you guys included, and myself, everybody whom God has made has a choice. We can follow God, our Creator, our King, the one who is the light of the world, or we can disobey God and follow after Satan, the father of lies. When we follow God, He gives us life. When we follow Satan, it only ends in death. Now, remember those things as we continue. To get back to me guiding you through the real life story of a missionary, first of all, who's heard of the word missionary before? Who has heard missionary? So many of you, right? But some of us maybe don't. Do you guys know what a missionary is? Can I get back here in the corner? Yes, go ahead. That's right. She said a missionary is someone who travels throughout the world and is sent, right, to go tell other people about God. That is correct. They have been sent out to go share the gospel with others. They're generally sent to different parts of the world to reach the people there and tell them about the Creator King. They can start churches where they can teach and train the people how to share God with others too. Now, our missionary this week is Eric Little. Now, I'm going to say his name again, and then you repeat it back to me, okay? Eric Little.
Eric Little.
That's right, Eric Little. All right. Everything that Eric did in his life was to honor and bring glory to God. Because, as I bet you've guessed it by now, when he made his choice, that was to follow who? Who did he choose to follow? He chose to follow God, his Creator and King. That's right. Eric grew up to do some pretty amazing things in his life. One of those things was he learned and enjoyed running. He learned how to run so quickly and sprint so fast that he got to be in the Olympic races, you guys. We can picture Eric's whole life as a race. Since this week, you'll be learning about the 5 legs of Eric's life. Now, I don't mean that Eric has 5 legs. What I mean, let me give you an example. Just like in a relay race, you guys know what a relay baton is? When you see people running around a track, right? They're getting ready to hand the baton to the next runner to keep going with that next lap, right? And those laps, each one is called a different leg. So, just like in a race where you pass the baton, each teammate runs 1 lap or leg around the track and then hands off the baton to the next runner. Just like that, I get to hand off this baton to the next missions guide tomorrow, who will then teach you some more about Eric Little's life. Pretty cool, huh? So, a little bit more about Eric. Before he was born, his mom, Mary, and his dad, James, they lived in Scotland. Now, do you guys know where Scotland is? A little bit? All right, so here's where we live, over here in Idaho, right? United States, okay? Eric's parents lived all the way over here and across the ocean in Scotland, all the way over here. Now, that's where they were born and raised, but when they became missionaries, they got sent out to go all the way down here to China. They were sent to China to be missionaries there, and even got to travel north to Mongolia. And in Mongolia, that's where we're going to talk a little bit of what they encountered there. So, they partnered with an organization called the London Missionary Society, who sent them to work in Mongolia. They moved far, far away from their home to this new place, excited and ready to tell the people about God. However, they weren't in Mongolia very long before they realized it wasn't a safe place to be. Some Mongols who called themselves the Boxers rebelled against God. Even though God created the Boxers too, they fought against God's way. They didn't acknowledge him as their king, but instead they tricked the people and they lied to them, and they wanted to be the ones in control and have power over other people's lives. Now, they tried to convince the other people there in China that nobody was welcome to come live there in their country. They also didn't want anybody coming to their country to tell them about God. So this included Eric's parents. In disobedience to God, these Boxers were tricked and blinded themselves. They chose to sin and do some horrible things. So a bunch of foreign troops that would come over to Mongolia, lots of Chinese Christians who lived there, lots of missionary families. So many people were being killed by the Boxers in this rebellion that it just wasn't a safe place to live. So James and Mary Little, Eric's parents, knew that they needed to get out of Mongolia, and quickly. They left everything behind. All they took with them was one suitcase packed with some clothes in it, and they fled. As you can imagine, they were probably pretty scared, but they knew that God was with them. So Eric's dad let the London Missionary Society know that things were not calm enough or safe enough to stay in Mongolia, and asked, where else can we go? So they finally got to be sent back to a little village in China, and they got to live at a mission center in a large compound in a city called Zhaoqiang, in a small village in the middle of China. The Chinese Christians who lived there were excited. They wanted missionaries to come and help them learn more about God. To welcome the Littles to their new home, the Chinese Christians there at that compound spread out a huge banner on their gate. And even though the words on it were written in Chinese, Eric's parents knew what it meant. And it meant Chinese and foreigners, all one home. They knew that they were finally in a safe place and could build God's kingdom. They were so relieved that God had not only led them to a place where they were finally safe, but that their new neighbors really wanted to learn more about God. Now, Eric was born there in China, right? Mom and Dad are from Scotland. They move over to China to be missionaries, and while they're there, little Eric is born. So, let me ask you this. Was Eric born in Scotland like his mom and dad? No. Was Eric born in Mongolia where they had to flee from to get safe? No. Where was Eric born? China. Eric was born in China. Very good. All right. He was not the only child either. Eric had an older brother named Robert, who was 7, and a younger sister, Jenny, who was 4. So Eric was 5 years old when he got to grow up. Well, he was born and raised, so for the first 5 years of his life, he got to play and run around in this missionary compound with his family. It's pretty cool. So in the compound where they all got to live, there were 4 different houses where all the missionary families lived. There were 2 schools. There was one school for the boys where Robert and Eric got to go, and there was one school for the girls where their little sister Jenny got to go. There was also a church, and Eric's dad got to preach at that church. And Eric's mom, she helped teach at the schools and also got to be a nurse for all of the little Chinese children in that village. All 3 kids even learned to speak Chinese. So while they were at school, they learned the language. They had such an amazing time with all their Chinese friends. Eric and his siblings loved running and playing outside in the village with their Chinese friends. They also had a great time with their pet goat and kittens. Who has a pet goat? Do any of you? Wow, so many of you. So you guys understand what it's like. That's awesome. To have a pet goat and how silly they are and how fun to watch them run around. So I bet you Eric, maybe he had some races with his goats to see who could run faster, right? So they also had some kittens. Do any of you have kittens or cats? All right, a lot of you do. Very good. So Eric learned from a very young age 2 very important things that he realized he was really growing to love. He realized that he loved running. And that makes sense, right? Because as he grew up in his life, and what we've already learned is that he gets to, when he's older, be in the Olympics and sprint and run really quickly. So he loved running. Another thing that he discovered was how much he loved the Chinese people. And that's important too, because he got to live with them, to grow up with them, and see the treasure that is their lives, right? And that God wants everybody in the world to know about him. So later in his life, he is able to be that missionary to those Chinese people. Now, the last thing to remember is after those 5 years that Eric grew up on that compound in that village, the Missionary Society told his parents, hey, you guys have been working and being missionaries for 9 full years. It is time for you guys to take a break, get a rest. So they gave them 1 year of a rest, kind of a vacation, but it was called a furlough. And they all got to go back to Scotland as a whole family and spend a year there so that they could rest and so that Eric's parents could get ready for more missions work after that. But more details about that, them being back in Scotland, remember that's where we're leaving off, because tomorrow, this is the start of the story for the second leg of Eric's life. So I will be handing the baton off to Mrs. Blakey tomorrow, and she will be guiding you through the second leg. All right,